You statist! You're a child abuser! You child abuser! You child abuser! Where's Jimmy Savile? Where's Jimmy Savile? Get back! Traitor!
What happens when a prime minister does not care about the people of his country and is involved in the worst controversies? Well, when he goes in public, people confront him, surround him, and shout at him, making him realize that he is not welcome and showing him the place where he belongs. That's what happened with Keir Starmer. People surrounded him and quickly turned into an angry mob. But things didn't stop there. They said the harshest things to him which will haunt him forever, making him remember what the public of the country thinks about him. So, why were people so angry at Starmer? What did they do? And how did Starmer have to run away? In this video, let's know about the whole story. It was supposed to be just another day for Keir Starmer. As the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, he had grown accustomed to moving through public spaces with a sense of detachment, guarded by his elite security detail, surrounded by loyal aides who reassured him that everything was under control. But what happened that day shattered the illusion he had carefully built around himself. Starmer stepped into the Westminster streets, expecting the usual level of criticism. Perhaps a few jeers, maybe a heckler or two, something he could brush off. But what he encountered was far beyond anything he had prepared for. The people were furious, their patience long gone, their voices rising into a collective roar of anger. They did not just protest his policies, they condemned him as a leader, as a man, and as a symbol of everything that had gone wrong in Britain. The crowd grew rapidly, and within moments, Starmer was trapped. The police officers around him stiffened, realizing this was not a routine encounter with a few disgruntled citizens. This was a full-blown public revolt. The shouts intensified, and soon Starmer found himself completely surrounded. The people were no longer pleading for answers. They were demanding accountability in a way that no carefully worded press statement or parliamentary speech could diffuse. For the first time, Starmer was forced to face the raw, unfiltered rage of the people he was supposed to govern. But why that happened? Well, there is no single answer to that. It's because there is a long trail of betrayals that led the British public to this breaking point. For years, Starmer's government had operated with an alarming sense of detachment from national interests, prioritizing abstract globalist ideals over the everyday struggles of the British people. His administration had made it clear that their loyalty lay not with the citizens who had elected them, but with the forces of international law, global cooperation, and progressive realignment.
Understand much of what they're saying, but the Prime Minister literally wrote a book on the European Convention on Human Rights. This is a situation where we need to put our national interest before the ECHR. Does he agree that we should legislate even if lawyers warn that this might be incompatible with human?
This attitude had manifested in several deeply controversial decisions that had alienated Starmer from the very people he was supposed to represent. The decision to surrender British territories, most notably the Chagos Islands, to foreign entities was a betrayal of national integrity. The people understood exactly what this meant. It meant the slow, deliberate erosion of Britain's geopolitical influence, a symbolic act of submission to global institutions that had no real accountability.
Well, I think you have to understand, I'm sure you do, Julia, that this is a government by left-wing human rights lawyers. Starmer is a great chum of Hermer. They've worked together, Hermer the Attorney General. Philippe Sands, who represents Mauritius, again, they've worked together in the same chambers and they're great friends. And they've come up with this bonkers idea. You've already explained half it, but the International Court of Justice at the time, which published this advisory opinion, I believe, and you can check this out, had amongst its 15 judges, it had a Somali, well known for their upholding the rule of law. It had a Chinese judge and a Russian judge. Now, why we think it is better to listen to these people than to listen to national interest, I don't know. But what is happening is basically Starmer, Hermer, Sands don't really like this country. They're a bit ashamed of its past.
Yes.
I'm very proud of our history, but they are not. They're ashamed of it, and they're trying to root out everything like that. Now, this is a real...
I think this is an act of self-harm by the Labour government that is going to seriously damage the interests of the British people. And they are currying favour with an international diplomatic and legal elite at the expense of the long-term interests, not just of the United Kingdom, but the whole of the West. They signed a deal with an ally of China for an extremely strategically important territory that is sovereign territory of the United Kingdom. It's a bad deal, and it reflects very poorly on the judgment of Sir Keir Starmer.
And it suggests that other territories like the Falkland Islands and Gibraltar, and some people have even suggested Cyprus, might also now be considered a bit vulnerable.
Well, I think it's hard to know what's next with this government. This is a deal that I wouldn't have signed, a Conservative government wouldn't have signed, and so who knows what Sir Keir Starmer will do next. Starmer and David Lammy always seem to put other people's interests.
But things don't stop here. Under Starmer's rule, immigration policies became a flashpoint for national frustration. While ordinary British citizens struggled with a collapsing economy, rising living costs, and overstretched public services, Starmer's government pushed policies that allowed unchecked migration into the country without regard for the economic consequences. His administration welcomed policies that favoured asylum seekers over working-class Britons, making it harder for native citizens to access housing, jobs and healthcare, and justifying it under the banner of human rights. Before we continue further, tell us, are you enjoying the video? If yes, please like and share the video and subscribe to our channel for more exclusive videos on the groundbreaking changes happening in British politics. Let's continue now. Furthermore, the British people watched in disbelief as their country plunged into an energy crisis, a crisis that was entirely preventable had the government prioritised national energy security over its fanatical pursuit of net zero policies. Instead of protecting British industry and energy independence, Starmer had allowed Britain's economic backbone to weaken, ensuring that people would pay the price for his administration's ideological rigidity. Even Starmer was confronted on the issue of the Southport attack, when it was later revealed that the government and Starmer knew about the criminal involved. However, despite the criminal record of the attacker who killed 3 young girls, he was allowed to roam freely without authorities keeping an eye on him. And when the incident happened and Starmer came to lay flowers at the place of the incident, he was confronted by angry people.
How many more children have died on our streets, Prime Minister? How many more children? How many more children, Prime Minister? Are we going to do something? Time to change, Starmer. Come on, needed. How many more children? Is it mine next? Are you going to stand up for our children? That? Got your photo, you're leaving now. Horror.
Take a wheelchair!
Are you going to change to our children?
Our children!
Our children are dying here because of you.
Go away! You're not wanted!
So as you can see, the Prime Minister is leaving now. It's getting quite tense here. There's a lot of anger in this community over what's happened. Emotions are running high here.
Before this incident, the main one where Starmer had to run away, people called him a traitor, an enemy of the people, a man who had betrayed his own country for the approval of foreign elites. Some mocked him mercilessly, bringing up the most scandalous accusations ever associated with his name, reducing him to a man running from his own reputation. The police officers around him tightened their formation, realizing that this situation could turn violent at any moment. The people were not just shouting, they were advancing, closing in, demanding that Starmer listen to their fury. One police officer moved forward, whispering something into his earpiece before nodding to his colleagues. The decision was made. Starmer could not stay there any longer.
You statist! You're a child abuser! You child abuser! You child abuser! Where's Jimmy Savile? Where's Jimmy Savile? Get back!
The angry crowd made it impossible for Starmer to walk away unnoticed. With no other option left, the police forcefully guided him toward the nearest vehicle. Officers pushed Starmer toward the back seat, shielding him from the boiling rage of the crowd. The moment he stepped inside, the vehicle sped off, weaving through the streets to escape the unrelenting storm of public anger. Starmer's desperate escape in a police car was not just about one bad day in public. It was about the reckoning of a leader who had lost touch with reality. He had spent too long dismissing public concerns, too long operating within a political bubble, and too long prioritizing foreign approval over national well-being. Now, the British people had made it clear. They would not be ignored any longer. This moment was not just an embarrassment for Starmer, it was a turning point for Britain. Because when a Prime Minister cannot even walk the streets of his own country without being confronted by furious citizens, it is not just a sign of public anger, it is a sign of upcoming political collapse. And for Keir Starmer, there was no running from that reality anymore. What do you think? Was Starmer treated as he deserved? Or do you feel he shouldn't have been shouted at and said derogatory remarks? In the comment section right below, share your thoughts on the ethical duty to resign as a Prime Minister.